Welcome back to Wow, Love, Light, Inspire the podcast, the show where we explore healing, growth, and the journey to emotional freedom after all the crap that life throws us, including narcissistic relationships and divorces and all of that as well. In today's episode, we're actually going to dive deep into triggers. So, what they are, how you see them, and how they affect us as well. So we're going to look at that and see how that can actually help us heal in the long term. Now, I'm Lorraine Roberts. I'm a holistic counsellor, root cause therapist, past life regression leader, and today I'm speaking with Richard Morden, who's also very similar and works with people going through transition in life as a coach and mentor and so forth. So Richard has written a chapter in a book, and the book and the chapter, is it just a chapter or is it a whole book? It's actually just a chapter.
Just a chapter. The chapter is called The Hidden Mirror.
The Hidden
Yeah.
Mirror. So we're going to ask Richard, what is a hidden mirror? It sounds like a good way to describe a trigger to me. So, yeah, it's a great way to describe, triggers. I love triggers. To me, they're the absolute gem. And if we can pick up on the fact that we're having a trigger, we can actually heal very quickly from it once you recognize it. So what's your take on triggers, Richard?
When I chose the title The Hidden Mirror, and the subtitle was Invisible Inheritance and the Legacy We Never Choose. Because often what we grow up with is patterns of conversation, patterns of communication, and you can either have like the open style communication, which is supportive, or the sort of dominating style communication, where parents, who had strict control over you as a child, and your voice really wasn't counted upon, so you don't have that ability to really respond. And all of this ultimately comes around the dinner table, and that's what I've been looking at various ways in other studies. The dinner table was the focus of so much of life's pattern of what we grew up with, how we were behave, how we interacted with, or how we were not. And there's a series called Predict My Future, and their ultimate aspect of was this finding after like 50 some years of study was the dinner table, and what was the conversation around the dinner table. So one of the things of triggers, and I'm just going to read out this little piece of, after relationship conflict, and you look around, where'd that reaction come from? Because so much of this is unconscious, what we inherited, what we observed, and what we have patterned ourselves after.
Yeah.
And you look around and you think, you've just caught yourself saying something, and you realize, oh my God, my dad used to say that. I'm doing the same thing, and I swore I never would. You know, and a lot of it is,
Relate
how
to
we
that.
shut down. Yeah, and it's just how we, interact, and there's so many. I call this 1,000 subtleties, and it's just, the way people can either pay attention to us or ignore us in the obvious terms, how someone listens or someone does not. And there's actually a study on this, and I don't know the exact name of it, but these people were really observing couples in conversation. And a lot of these were, I think, might have been done by the CA, and it said that within 30 minutes of conversation, they could tell if the couple were going to stay together or not. And there wasn't even talking about divorce, but the way they interacted. And one of the clear signs was that one of the partners was, I think, the term called contemptuous, the way they did not listen, the way they looked at the person when they were talking, the way they sort of isolated. And contempt's a very strong, hard emotion. And when someone has that in their design or the way they view another other person, then they realize that the other person is never going to have a clear path to a conversation. There's always going to be this, what I call this wedge in there.
Yeah.
So it's subtleties, and just a quick one. We talked about our life, and Napoleon Hill had an excellent quote. He said, "We don't create our life, we inherit our habits, and we take on family patterns and relationships, good and bad, and that's what we cast into our life."
Yeah. And that's what our kids have learnt from us, our
Yeah.
patterns. So how we've interacted with them and with our partner is exactly what they're going to inherit and do
Right.
exactly the same, whether they think about it or not. Which is what, if you can actually pick yourself up on all these things that are happening, then you can change them. But they are so, they just sit back in the subconscious, and we are so totally oblivion to them. We don't know they're there, and they run us.
And if we're into TV programs and you look back over the generations of what we have seen, the TV had a large influence on our behavior, on our thoughts, and on our relationships. So when you look at a lot of the shows, Seinfeld and all our shows were funny shows in many ways, but they were all designed for influence. They weren't designed just for humor. All of those had what I call pattern influence of how we observed each other, how we interacted, how we viewed each other as the male and female roles. All these had influences on our, internal thoughts, behavior, but became part of our relationships. You look today, we are in chaos for relationships, like tremendous opposition. And again, I call it by design, by design to influence, and just the term I coined today was, with a lot of media, news, TV, it's emotional wave formation. It's designed to move us into certain camps or mind perceptions, mind scripts, that we do, and not realizing why we're behaving the way we do, because it's so unconscious again, but it's all designed. And we could say it's designed for advertising. Of course it is, but it's designed for many other ways: political points of view, sports, religion. And all this comes into our internal dialogue, but our external with our people around us and our partners, if we have one.
Yeah, actually, it's interesting. As you're saying that, I'm thinking, well, when I was a kid, what did I watch? I watched On the Buses. I watched Love Thy Neighbor. Oh my goodness, they were shocking role models. They were really terrible shows for women. They were so funny, but oh my goodness, you had a clever person and an idiot, and they were just bouncing off each other. And it was always the woman was the idiot, and the clever one was the husband. And it was terrible. Oh, we had another good one in Australia, Kingswood Country, and I don't even think you can find it on YouTube now. It would be so bad,
Well, here in America, and my wife was just reviewing some of the old soap operas that were on for decades.
Yeah.
My late wife watched them too, and he looked back at the role models, and it was like, the women were the dominating strength. The men were not. And if a man was strong, he was evil, So and it was the way it was designed. A strong woman and a strong man couldn't be together. They no way in these soap operas, because they were one of them had to be good, one had to be bad. So it's there you're getting the role model set in front of you that two strong aligned people can't be together. One person has to be the dominant one, and a lot of here in America, the women have been the dominant one. They're the ones winning the fistfights now. They're the ones kicking cars over and knocking people out. The men are the weaker kind.
Yeah. Yeah.
So and the children see that, and a lot of what we see in broken homes, the women had to be the role model. They've had to be the caregiver for everything, and the men have been just absent.
Yeah. Because I'm thinking, well, Dallas, the men were the dominant ones. Yeah, I'm trying to think of which ones. Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? And we take them on whether we realize it or not. And that's what we're educating our children on as well.
And for many of them, how many times did you see couples in supportive relationships?
On television, not really. Because there's no entertainment in that.
No, there wasn't. There was one series, I can't remember the name of it, where one couple would have 10 minutes of saying, which actually was pretty cool. They have 10 minutes to say whatever they want. This is how they resolve their issues, and so it's very interesting that. But most relationships I had, alcohol, drug abuse, affairs, all kinds of deception, all kinds of things going on, and lots of backstabbing, and we took it as norm because that's what we see. We look at drama, we look at a lot of sports. I mean, I don't know but where you are in North America, and wrestling is a big thing. I watched wrestling when I was 10 years old, but today it's become this theater of, incredibly, for women, a lot of, they're wrestling in bikinis, they have bikini football, they have all kinds of things that are
bikini football. Seriously.
Yeah. Shoulder pads, helmets, and bikinis.
Oh my goodness.
That's North America. But I mean, but what it does, it comes back into relationships, because what we talk about this is we feel what the relationship we have is not working. So you choose to end and you choose someone else, because the chemistry of familiar states, even painful ones, becomes a pattern. If we don't recognize the chemistry, the attraction pattern, because if you grew up in these dynamics as a child, they're familiar. Even painful, abusive ones are familiar because that's what you're used to.
That's the norm.
And you can't understand why. And a lot of times, and people say, oh, I made it, this one's a little better than the last one. But we don't realize we have the ability to completely change that. But it starts with inside you. So again, emotional chemistry is really just emotional history. It's chemical history in our bodies. And again, how our nervous system prioritizes familiarity over health.
Mm.
It'll be attracted to someone has addictions. We have this rescue mode in us. We have to go help somebody. We're going to save somebody, or we find somebody with what we call commonality. This is one of my big descriptions, like, well, we have this in common. And sometimes, the person says, well, we've got 3 or 4 things in common. If I really work hard, maybe we'll get 5 and 6 to come and play, and we can do some things. Never happens.
Mm.
Because the commonality is what is, it's almost a stasis. So my point of view is, you have some commonality, maybe, but what do you want to create? What do you really want are you willing to go out of your comfort zone and do something different? Are you willing to really look at your patterns? And so again, if you think you're going to step into someone's life and they're going to turn around because you're there, most likely not, both genders. Because if they've been like that for, they're 30, 40 years old, they're not going to, unless they're in some personal discovery of their own, a relationship isn't going to really change that for them, in my opinion. Once in a blue moon.
No, you did right about that one. Yeah, they've got to want
Yeah.
it. They've got to want to change, and they've got to be they've got to be open to actually seeing what's happening. But how often do you get on a train, or you go to a cafe or somewhere, and each person is sitting there on their phone? They're not even communicating nowadays. And families go out for dinner and they're all sitting there on their phone. There's 4 or 5 people sitting at a table all going. And I was at a friend's place one night and they were all playing the same game on their phones within the same room.
Nobody's talking.
And no one's talking. They're all playing this, the same game. And it's like, really? No communication.
So something,
No relationship, no nothing being formed.
and here's another part of this, and why we often feel bored with healthy potential partners. The phenomenon of being bored with healthy, emotionally available, consistent partners isn't about lacking passion. It's about addiction to activation. And someone doesn't trigger your familiar stress patterns, your dopamine system doesn't receive its expected stimulation. And without the neurochemical, your dopamine, so it doesn't receive what it is. Without the neurochemical roller coaster of uncertainty, intermittent reinforcement, and emotional intensity, your brain interprets this calm stability as nothing. You're bored.
Yeah.
So people say this, and that's, I've seen so many times in relationships. I remember overhearing a story with someone, the people knew, a person who's now in her second, third marriage, got a great partner, did all these things. And then the last statement was, and she's not happy with him either. It just happened to her. I'm not picking on women, but it happens both sides. You get this person and you realize you're not happy because you're not in this cycle. And a lot of people have these high activation cycles, that they need drama. And, there's so many ways we get addicted to that. So, and oftentimes people want a stable partner, but a stable partner comes in with rules and boundaries, and some people that's not acceptable. They love the chaos. They love the mix, the fighting. They love all the drama play.
Yeah.
And it's what you grew up with.
Yep. Yes. So dad's an alcoholic, so you don't drink because you don't like alcohol, but your partner gets drunk all the time and you're the designated driver to go drive home. You've just repeated it.
I know that one.
That's your norm. Yeah, exactly.
And, the comfort of pain, why we return to what hurts.
Yeah.
People go into painful relationships because that's what they're used to. So unless you are willing to really look at this, understand this, and seek change, this is what it's going to be like.
And the sad thing is, not only do you drive your partner home who's drunk, your children are either the drunks themselves or they find a partner that they can drive home because they're drunk. And it goes down generation after generation. And you can see it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And sometimes
I did that in my first marriage. I was the driver. I was the caretaker. So, and unknowingly, but that's how, then you realize it took years later to realize how that worked out. But it's again, if we think, I told my daughter one time, if you think you can help somebody, because especially in relationships, and again, we all do it. I can help this person. I can make a difference in their life. 99% of the time, not.
Yeah. And we often reject the person who isn't the alcoholic because that's not what we're looking for. We're looking for the alcohol. We're looking for the person with those traits that we theoretically don't want. So if you come into the relationship without the traits, you're boring and it won't go.
Too predictable. Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, we grew up with this, so this is what our norm is. There's a term called the adult-child syndrome. We develop, it's a common term, and we develop these strategies young, how to get attention if we've seen this in our parents. One parent, maybe a drinker, how we got attention, how we stayed safe, how we helped out. Sometimes as a child, many children became adults very young, looking after the family, and that carries into your adult life.
Yeah.
You're the caregiver, you're the caretaker. So it's so many of these patterns, again, we don't recognize growing up. That ability had a strategy when you're young, but as an adult becomes such a disability.
Yeah, yes. And once we're the caregiver, that's the pattern we're going to take on for life. So we're always looking for people to care for. So if you're not broken, we're not interested in you because you're boring. Yeah.
And again, knowing better isn't enough to change the pattern. Oh, I know better. You're still in the pattern. So what's going to take for you to change the pattern? Is it something that you really look at and say, if I change this because it's familiar with you, it's comfortable, it's a zone you stay in. If that's your life, great. If that's something you want to change, then there's, that's the work both Lorraine and I do to help you change that pattern.
Yeah, exactly. So you've got to recognize it, you've got to acknowledge it, then you've got to choose to change it, and then you've got to decide that it is happening. That's basically the step.
Because it will change your environment and most of the people you hang around. And for many people, that's too terrifying.
Yeah.
When you change that, you're going to end up changing the people that are in your life. They're going to change and drop off. So it's a shift in your social life. It's a shift in your emotional and mental life. And some people are seeking a change, don't know how to do it, which is great. That's what we do. Some people realize it's too great a change for me and I don't want to. That's your choice.
So what are some key symptoms of triggers that happen to us? Do you want to go through those?
Yeah, I just got it on the sheet here. There's lots of, I've got a list of triggers. Abandonment related, partner needs space, doesn't respond quickly to texts, spends time alone. Rejection related, betrayal related, loss of security. There's inadequacy related, unworthiness, exposure related, performance related.
Yeah.
Injustice, powerless, boundaries, control, unmet expectations, disappointment, loss related.
Yeah, persistent feelings of guilt and shame, responsibilities for others as well.
I mean, something I faced with my father, there was always the shame thing. You were never going to do it right, and you couldn't do something, and you always got the verbal dialogue, which was degrading, and then the throat, and just this look of sort of disgust, and it was just constant, right? So you look at, and you get that point where you can't seem to do anything right because that's what you face. There was never that encouragement, and that carries off into a lot of relationships in the sense of being supportive or how you expect someone else to do things up to your standard. But if you can't support them in ways that inform them and embrace change, then you're going to stay in the same dynamic.
And you've got a constant fear of failing, so you're never going to win. So you're never going to achieve anything because whatever you think, you're right. So if you think you're going to fail, guess what? You'll fail.
I mean, there's so many triggers. We're just doing some work on creating some lists of stuff so they actually see what these are, because again, I don't see much out there that really highlights what these triggers are. In often ways, we could talk about performance and attachment, but a lot of times, again, the triggers are 1,000 subtleties of what sets us, what connects us, what supports us. So and after a while, when a trigger is constant, we go into avoidance or some sort of shutdown performance on our side because it's safety.
Yeah, that's it. Well, you can't maintain a healthy romantic relationship if you're looking for the bad in someone. You can't perform well at work when you don't think you can achieve anything in life. Once your self-esteem is eroded, you're really in trouble. You've got increased vulnerability to anxiety, depression, and addiction as well. And then there's always professional challenges, which is due to fear of failure or perfectionism or whatever it is that you're trying to run away from.
You said a key statement: when your self-esteem or self-worth gets eroded, then you're just in a holding pattern or sort of avoidant pattern. You're never going to step up. You're never going to, not say never, but not perform the way you could. You're going to be in survival mode.
Absolutely. Because that's your norm. That's your normal. It's exactly your normal. So even though you intellectually know that this is a pattern and that you're going to change it, changing it is a bit different as well. You can't intellectually change something. You actually have to physically change it and catch yourself while you're doing it as well. So the gap between knowing something and actually doing it is huge. And doing it on your own can be even harder in a way, because you can't see what's really happening from top
the underlying patterns, the underlying substance of what's really creating this. It takes two people. It takes someone with support to help you recognize this, and then you say, here's a trigger. We release the trigger. Now what's my activation into another part of that's strengthening for me? That's an activation that allows me to take a step, take a a sequence that allows me to become more stronger, more connecting, more sequential in my activation to a target, to a goal, to a completion.
And it's like you need someone to call you out on your bullshit as well at times, because you don't see the patterns. So therefore it is bullshit because it's a pattern. But if someone else can see that and they'll call you out on it, you go, oh, okay, I see what I'm doing. And it's very easy to see it in someone else, but very hard to see it in this,
Yep.
which is why, every coach, every mentor, every psychologist, every counselor needs to have someone that they work with, because we can see it in our clients, but we can't see it in ourselves. And if they claim they don't have one, well, then that's not true either, or they're not addressing their own needs.
So that's a good overview of this. There's a lot of details behind the scene with what this is. Just even recognizing the patterns, the behavior, the actions, what kind of environment you're in, and looking at perhaps what you grew up with, and is it same? And is there a chance for something different? Yes. But it's recognizing where you are, and is there something you want different? Are you willing to? And it's not a painful discovery. It's not digging into this pain, digging up your past and showing you every bad thing that happened. It's about really identifying the triggers and processing. So it's not, you don't have to be, my trigger is because, all this very abusive situation happened. We can work with that in present time. So it all transforms without the pain, without the suffering, without the thing. And this is not talk therapy. This is sort of digging into the emotional, physical aspects of you as well.
And sometimes it's just actually recognizing it, because I know if you look at past life regression, when you're actually going back into past lives and seeing the patterns that were running then, once you've seen those patterns, you can actually look at them in this life and go, oh, I've just repeated that pattern. I am doing that. And that is all you need to know to actually change it, to say, right, this is where that has come from. Now I can release that and move on and not repeat that pattern. It's quite amazing, yeah. What happened in a past life or in generational stuff just sometimes needs to be acknowledged.
Because you're right, it's Pauline Hill said, we inherit our habits. Habits are unconscious. Yeah.
Absolutely. So you're finding meaning in the patterns without defining them, basically. Yeah.
Well, I think I've covered everything I can think of right now in the sense of the overview of what this is.
Yes. I think we've covered it well enough. So if anybody finds that they've got triggers, which everyone has triggers that they want to deal with, they want to work through, Rich and I can certainly help you actually work out where they're coming from and how you're going to uncover them and how you're going to change them. That's exactly what we do. So thank you, everybody, and we'll talk again in another week's time or so forth.